Trust is so huge, and it's hard to define how it gets created, just like value is so huge, and it's hard to define how that gets created. But the things that we're talking about is how they get created.
Absolutely.
By having that best interest of the prospect in mind. I want to know about you. I want to learn about you. I want to show you things that I feel like would be helpful to you in this stage of life. So yeah, trust and value are very interesting components of this whole process.
And that's going back to the human element of it.
Yeah.
This is the process you want to be as human as possible. With empathy, there's nothing like a human connection. Welcome to The Move In, a senior living marketing podcast from Unlock Health, a full-service marketing partner for the aging services industry. Join us for candid conversations exploring the latest marketing strategies with the senior living community leaders and innovative solution partners who are moving our industry forward. Together, we'll build a community to build better communities. Senior living sales shouldn't be a transaction. It should be a trust-building journey that personalizes the experience, addresses concerns, and guides families toward confident decisions. But how can communities rethink their approach to create deeper connections and ensure every interaction moves prospects closer to saying yes with confidence? Hello, I'm Larry Williams, and welcome to The Move In, a senior living marketing podcast. Today, I'm honored to welcome Libby Lauer from Senior Source Consulting Group, an expert in senior living sales, mystery shopping, and customer experience to break down common stumbling blocks she uncovers in her work and how communities can elevate their approach to better serve prospective residents and their families. Here are a few key topics we discussed. First, the crucial discovery process that often gets skipped. We also discussed why sales teams should stop being shy about pricing and the danger of generic building tours. We also detail how saying goodbye in the lobby could be costing communities valuable move-ins. Libby has been a great resource for me as I've continued to grow my senior living knowledge, and in this conversation, you'll see why she's one of my go-tos for all things aging services. Let's dive in. All right, welcome to the Move In Senior Living Marketing. This is going to be our first episode outside of the SMASH conference. Ironically, it's with someone who was supposed to attend the SMASH conference, but due to some weather issues, a hurricane that hit Tampa, Libby could not make it. And so we missed her presence, and she was supposed to be one of the individuals that we were going to interview at SMASH, but because Libby, you couldn't make it, I said, We're going to get you back on an episode so you can share your knowledge. But first and foremost, we missed you. Like, it wasn't the same without you at SMASH. And how's everything in Tampa now? It's a long process, but are you and your family, everybody good?
Thank you. We're fine. We lost power for about 6 days. We had lots of trees right next to us, and either neighbor just fell, blocking the road, doing a little bit of damage. But yeah, a lot of folks unfortunately suffered a lot of damage with those hurricanes. So we're good. I just couldn't get there, and I'm so sad that I missed SMASH. It would have been my first SMASH actually, so I was really looking forward to it. So definitely missed it, but I'm glad that we're able to reconnect here.
Yeah. Thank you for reconnecting here. And leading up to SMASH, I was excited to see you. And I know you tried your hardest to make it. And I think it was like the Thursday or Friday before. It was the last minute. You said, I just can't do it. And of course, everybody understood that. But right before SMASH, you had a post on LinkedIn that I love. And you're sharing your top 4 most common stumbling blocks uncovered during your in-person mystery shops.
Yeah.
And so it got a lot of attention. A lot of people commented on that. And what I wanted to do is, see if you can go into a little bit more detail about, this post and add more clarity and give more insight into what you've seen, what you experienced. And just right off the bat, I'll say what you highlighted as the 4 most common stumbling blocks are skipping discovery, being shy about the pricing discussion, providing a generic building tour, and saying goodbye in the lobby. And so I'm excited to get into that in more detail. But before we do that, explain the mystery shopping process. And I know that's one of the many services that your organization, Senior Source Consulting, provides.
And so give us a little bit more detail about what that looks like and how you help serve senior living communities.
Oh, yeah. Well, so it's interesting because when I was signing up for this StreamYard podcast, I hadn't used it before. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of add your title or something underneath. So you have host under your name. And I said, okay, I'm going to add, we answer questions, because when our clients come to us, they have questions. They don't know. They don't know, is their pricing correct? Do they have this empty land? What should they build? Should they convert some assisted living units over to memory care units? They just come to us with questions. And so through our mystery shopping, we can either do a telephone mystery shop where we're kind of gathering data, like some pricing and incentives. We can kind of gauge how a salesperson is handling that inquiry call. But really kind of what we're most known for is our in-person mystery shop process. And that's where we really do a deep dive look into a client community that has some questions. And we shop them as a real prospect would, starting with the whole inquiry process, either through the website or the phone call. And we also do the same thing with their top competitors that they give us. So we really just do a big SWOT analysis. Who's the best at doing the inquiry call? Who's the best at setting up a tour? Who's the best at talking about the pricing? Who's creating the most value? And so through that, the mystery shops kind of help answer a lot of questions that people have so that they can then create a little action plan, figure out where they need to focus a little bit more attention to get better results. We also help with that kind of action planning process, because in our reports, we also include these little bright ideas. We kind of call them out with a little light bulb, and it's like, hey, think about doing this. Think about doing this to get a leg up on your competitor. So it's always very like, beat the market. What are you doing, and what could you be doing to beat your competitor? So that's the whole process of our mystery shop, is just figuring out where those opportunities are.
Well, thank you for explaining that. And just a little backstory, I've got to know Libby better from LinkedIn. And so we connected on LinkedIn, and somehow we started to exchange messages, and you quickly helped me. And so the we answer questions tagline, yes, 100%, I can attest that Libby answers questions. And as I've got to know Libby, she would always be the first one that I reach out to if I had a question about senior living. And you always had great advice and guidance and explaining like why this might be the case or what's going on, kind of like the story behind the story. Mm-hmm. And so you've been a wealth of information. And as you mentioned in this post, this is an emotionally charged, like buying process. And because, this is not something you're shopping for on a regular basis. Families or, senior living seekers might look for living options once or maybe twice in their lifetime. So it's really important to like, just, make sure everything's dotted and everything's in place for a great experience. And I appreciate the mystery shopping process, because far too often people do not understand where the holes might be until they hear back from that mystery shopper. And so I'm sure you see that on a firsthand experience every day, that, a senior living community had no idea that there's this, issue with, that whether it's that discovery process or when someone calls in. I'm sure that that's something that you find every day as you walk with some of your clients through that process.
Yeah, it is interesting to see what our clients' feedback is once they receive our report back. And because we just did a project recently where there was just some turmoil. The community management had changed. There was some turmoil, internally. And so we were able to sort of feel that out and then create a plan for the client, like, host some team building, sessions, take everybody bowling, communicate like the positive benefits to the staff because of this new ownership change, and just sort of things like that. And they came back and said, we thought we were doing all of this, but we are going to put together a formalized new community management checklist, if you will.
Yeah.
When we go over a new building, we're going to do all of these things. Because of this report, we can see where we can just kind of button up the process a little bit and make it more formal so things don't get missed accidentally. Yeah. So it is interesting to see what what things are revealed from the mystery shops, and it's always something very interesting. I do try to post those on LinkedIn, like, oh, I had this really interesting thing, but they're all interesting.
And I'm sure it's always this surprise. Like, wait, that's happening? Like, we had no idea, and you wouldn't have known if it wasn't for that mystery shopping experience. So, jumping into this post, I want to go right into the first stumbling block, which is skipping discovery.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little more information on that front? Like, what does that process look like, and where does that stumbling block typically happen on that phase?
The stumbling block of skipping discovery actually happens quite frequently in two places where it could be happening, that it sometimes is getting skipped. One is on the first inquiry call, and the second one is when the person is the prospect is coming in for a tour. And so when discovery is skipped in the inquiry call, meaning that the salesperson just really kind of proceeds to tell about the community, tell how many units it has, tell the pricing that it has, and the salesperson is focusing on telling versus focusing on asking. So asking those open-ended questions like, tell me, why is it that you called us today? What is going on? What will be most important to you as you start looking at communities? So discovery during the inquiry call, when it's done well, can give that salesperson a wealth of information to then use to kind of wow that prospect and improve that customer experience once they get to the community.
Yeah.
You know, so they discover that, I'm just not sure my mom is eating enough anymore. She's getting real skinny. Well, then I can make sure I'm introducing the chef when she comes in to visit. I'm introducing her to a couple of residents that are on the resident food committee. I'm going to invite her to lunch so she can make sure she eats something nutritious and delicious. Plus, I'm going to send her home with a nicely packaged to go. So it's like with discovery, when you skip that, you don't have the opportunity to really find those little ways to really personalize it and create that value. So skipping discovery on the call is a big stumbling block that can easily be overcome by spending some time asking open-ended questions. Then skipping discovery when someone comes in, and also just like launching straight into the tour. Oh, thanks for coming in. Let's go take a look around. Let's go look at apartments.
Yeah.
That's a stumbling block because, again, it just removes that personal touch, and it focuses on the building.
Sure.
It focuses on apartments. You're not picking an apartment. You're picking a lifestyle.
Absolutely. Far too often we go into features and benefits, and instead of asking those questions and exploring that fit, is this a good potential fit? It's really important to go through that, because I think far too often, whether it's in, any type of business development, we want to go into hey, this is what we can do for you, and this is another service we provide this. But instead, like you said, ask questions, get to know the individual. And sometimes you might be the first one who says, we're probably not the right fit. These are other options, or these are other directions you can go, but get to know the person, get to start asking those questions. And then that's going to help on every single, step afterwards.
100%. You're so right when you say, is it a good fit? Because, which kind of leads into one of the other stumbling blocks of sort of providing a generic building tour.
Mm-hmm.
We also call it providing an over here tour.
Yeah.
Over here is the dining room. Over here is the library. And, then it just doesn't feel like it's maybe a good fit. But if someone takes the time to conduct a bit of discovery and learns that someone is like an avid reader, well, then we can say, well, let's take some time and let's explore the new release section of our library. Do you think your mom would find enough things to read in here that she would find interesting? We help it become a good fit.
Yeah, I love that. And so many of the conversations, we have the other podcasts, the Move and Healthcare Growth, and so many of the conversations have focused on AI and technology. Mm-hmm. And my theory is that we can use these tools for good, but more importantly, it's going to make us more human. But we have to get away from these transactional conversations. And I think, like you said, that generic building tour, anybody can offer the fit videos and photos, but it's that getting away from that generic building tour where you're actually interacting and finding out, would they like this? Will they not like this? What are their preferences? And really provide more of a customized tour instead of just going through, like you said, each hallway, each dining facilities and everything like that. So I think it's really important to really customize it based on what you know, which goes back to the discovery process.
Exactly right. Yes, it's all interrelated, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it goes back to one issue that I continue to hear is just pulling all of this data together. And so we continue here. We have the data. How are we going to use it? How are we going to leverage it for good? Which is, if you know this about somebody, man, but have it in the notes. And for anyone who connects with this, for regardless if it's a prospect or if they've already moved in, if they're a resident, you know this about this group, focus your efforts there. And I think having this information, we have it, let's leverage it. And regardless if it's in the sales process or actually providing a good experience once they move in.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a way to use AI to sort of like scan the notes that are in the CRM and then go, what are the top 5 things that are most important to this prospect? You know, they really feel like nutrition is like something super, super duper important to them. They love to be creative and want to create art and jewelry making it or whatever. So like, if there's a way to kind of run the notes through the AI and up with like top 5 hot buttons or most important items to a prospect so that you can really just help them see how their life will be full of these things that they love.
Absolutely. You want to centralize that information and use it, but then let it like create more human experiences.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's such a key. Okay. So you kind of covered that providing a generic building tour. And I'm glad that segued perfectly there. I want to take it back to the another, regardless if it's senior living or any type of sales, which is being shy about their pricing discussion. And I think far too often salespeople do not want to have this conversation because I'm sure they feel like it's going to eliminate maybe a prospect, but the opposite is they can just keep a conversation straggling when they can quickly find out if it's a good fit or not. And it goes back to skipping discovery, which is you need to explore and find out if it's a good fit or not. And that's important on all parties involved. It's good to have that transparent conversation. I'm a big fan of the book Crucial Conversations, about having the hard conversations, and that it's going to help throughout. I don't care if it's work, at home, wherever, but just have those transparent conversations to make sure everybody's on the same page. I'm sure you see the same thing in these mystery shops. Can you elaborate on this just a little bit?
Yeah, this is actually very interesting. The amount of times or the number of times that we see salespeople just say to our mystery shoppers, the pricing is in the brochure. Take it home, look at it, and call me with any questions. So this is when we're with that person. We've been with that person touring for about an hour. You know, oftentimes they just want to send us home with the brochure to go look at the pricing ourselves and then call with any questions. So this happens so frequently. It's actually a little shocking, I have to say. So, you know, a better way would be to sit down after looking around, you know, asking some questions. Well, what did you think about what you saw today? Do you feel like your mom would be comfortable here? Of the 2 apartments that we saw today, do you feel there's one that's better suited for your mom than the other? Okay, I got little 1-bedroom den down the hall. All right, well, let's sit down and talk about it because this is important. Take out the brochure, take out the price sheet, take out the floor plan, write down the number of that little apartment that she just said she liked, circle the price. Again, go over everything that's included because there's so much information that we're throwing at prospects of what's included: 3 meals a day, housekeeping, transportation. There's just so much that we're throwing at them. Take the time to, you know, use the brochure, make some notes, star things, go over things, ask, how does this feel? Do you feel like your mom's life would be enhanced here? Just all of those things. Plus, like we said a couple of times, tying back to discovery, you could say, well, do you feel like now that 3 meals a day are included here, you're concerned about your mom's nutrition will be alleviated? It's all of those things packed together to make a sale. So a lot of times folks are just shy about this, but I feel like if they took the time to do discovery, they took the time to show how the community services are going to be a right fit, then they shouldn't be shy about the conversation because it would just be a natural flow. Because value has been created.
Yes. The value's been created, and it's at that point don't look at sales, but you're really providing comfort and trust in that next process, because at some point, if it's not a fit financially, they're going to find that out. Just be upfront with it, but have those conversations and provide that comfort at that point. And I think that it can be challenging at times, but you do yourself and the prospect, the potential resident, a lot of good just to have those very transparent conversations. I'm not sure if you can lean into this at all, but I'm sure also if you have those transparent conversations at the beginning, it helps every step, even after they move in. You've covered all of this. There's no surprises. And I think in my own business development life, I never want anybody to be surprised. My theory is nobody likes surprises, and like cover everything up front, and you're going to have a happy resident moving forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when someone asks questions, like let's say a prospect calls, they know that they're working with a certain budget, right? They know mom or dad have a certain number, dollar amount coming in. They know maybe their house is worth X dollars. So a lot of times prospects will call and ask for some pricing on the front end, which is a good thing, right? Like people want to know, before I take your time, my time, let's just make sure we're somewhere in the ballpark of where we can afford this. But it'd be great if communities had sort of like an electronic brochure that they could send after a call-in. So it's something more that's offered on the web than is offered on the website. So it's sort of like a bridge. Like here's a little bit more for you to kind of learn a little bit about us before you come in and visit us. So that people who do decide to come in already know that they can afford it. So it's not wasting anybody's time. But I think even when people can afford it, the value still has to be created through all of these things that we're talking about.
It's like putting a puzzle together. You can't have one without the other. And so all this works together for sure.
Oh, it does.
All right. Finally, this is one I like to get a lot of feedback on. I'm curious about this. Saying goodbye in the lobby. And so I'd love to hear your feedback on this. This is the one it was last in the bullet points, but this is one I say for last just because I really wanted to hear your explanation here on this one.
Well, it's interesting because I did get quite a few questions in the comments from this post. Like, what exactly do you mean? Am I supposed to say goodbye to someone through the back door? Like, where am I supposed to say goodbye? So what I mean by this one is there are so many times where the prospect and the salesperson are having a very lovely visit, a very lovely tour. Our shoppers, of course, give a lot of buying signals that they're interested in what they're saying to us and have a pretty short timeline where we're saying like, we kind of want to move in, by the end of the year, that type of thing. But so many folks will just finish the tour, kind of come back to the front door and go, okay, see, thanks so much for coming in. Call me if you have any questions. So that's what I refer to as like sort of saying goodbye in the lobby. And then not taking that step of like sitting back down, having some coffee, having a scone, just how is everything, kind of debrief, outline those next steps. So that's kind of a biggie that kind of just truncates the momentum that has been built through that whole process. And it's like, okay, see ya. Call me if you have any questions.
Yeah, you want to wrap that up and have that connection at the end. And so it didn't just seem like you just took them on a building tour and like, peace out, you're on your way. Like, but we were looking to actually build, we'd love for you to be a resident here. And it would be it would be meaningful to us for you to be a part of this community.
Yes, exactly. And like earlier you mentioned something, you referenced, people don't shop for senior living every day. They once a lifetime, right? Maybe twice. So they don't know the process. So by us just like going, see ya, call me if you have any questions, it leaves all of the worry and the stress of what comes next on the prospect. Versus if we kind of flip that around a little bit and say, let's have a seat. Let's talk about what we learned today. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me if you feel like this is going to be a good fit for your mom. What questions can I answer for you? Let's go through the pricing. Just wrap it up. Make sure everybody is comfortable, has an opportunity to ask questions right then and there. You don't want to just send them off and say, call me if you have any questions. That's kind of a low probability way to end that tour.
I love let's just sit down. What questions do you have? But I feel like another important, really question to the family member or the senior living seeker is, what concerns do you have? What can we answer? Just again, if it goes back to the discovery phase, which is you want to explore the fit that exists. Yeah. If it's a great fit, help them find that out. If it's not, you'll find that out as well. But I think it's really building, that, like that, I don't know, like goodwill and building that trust as well during that process.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Trust. It's interesting. Trust is so huge, and it's hard to define how it gets created, just like value is so huge, and it's hard to define how that gets created. But the things that we're talking about is how they get created. Absolutely. By having that best interest of the prospect in mind. I want to know about you. I want to learn about you. I want to show you things that I feel like would be helpful to you in this stage of life. So yeah, trust and value are very interesting components of this whole process.
And that's going back to the human element of it. Yeah. This is the process you want to be as human as possible with empathy. And there's nothing like a human connection. Like there's data points we've talked about, lead generation with, digital methods, but it's really that human connection at this point that I think wins the day for sure.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Libby, what you had, wrap this up. What other advice can you offer with this community?
I think if a community kind of can keep the adult daughter in mind with food, with programming, and make it so that the adult daughter walks in and goes, wow, I want to live here.
Yeah.
If you can figure that magic part out through just interesting programming, just good quality food, just really friendly people, introduce your residents, let people know how easy it is to make friends. Let people know how easy it is to have something to look forward to every day, because everyone still wants to use their brains, use their talents. So I feel like those are some kind of little low-hanging fruit, really just leverage your happy residents in the sales process, make those connections, make those introductions. And that's really where the magic happens. It's all about that friendly feel that, okay, I'm not going to be the new kid on the block. I'm going to just have friends as soon as I move in here.
Yeah. It's at Smash, we talked about the power of meaningful connections, which included Dave wearing a cow suit. So I know there's pictures out there of that, but it's so important. That's when it's all said and done. Yes, it's a place to live and a place to connect, but when it's all said and done, it's those meaningful connections that everyone seeks. So Libby, thank you for what all you do. Thank you for the impact you've made in my career. And as someone I can always reach out to when I'm questioning something, you've been just a incredible source of advice and encouragement. So where can people find you?
Well, of course, I'm on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Libby Lauer, Senior Source Consulting Group. Also, our website, Senior Source Consulting Group. It's easy to just link with us, to send a Calendly request to have a chat. Anytime, we are open for brainstorming sessions, just like we do, you and I. I always learn things from you as well. So appreciate your willingness and openness. We like to do the same. We've seen a lot. We've experienced, I don't even know how many things. We've mystery shopped probably 6,000 communities or more at this time. So any question somebody has and wants to brainstorm, just reach out to us at seniorsourceconsultinggroup.com and we will endeavor to help.
Yeah. And again, I can attest to that firsthand. Libby and her team are always there with great advice. So Libby, thanks for being a part of today's conversation and looking forward to seeing you at the next conference.
It's my pleasure, Larry. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks.
See you.
Great stuff as always, Libby. Thank you for sharing with us today. Here are a few key takeaways that I made notes of in my conversation with Libby. First, personalize through discovery. Ask open-ended questions to understand a prospect's needs and use that insight to tailor the tour and follow-up. Second, be transparent about pricing. Confidently discuss costs by framing the value of services, guiding prospects through options, and instead of just handing over a brochure. Third, end with a clear next step. Don't just say goodbye. Sit down for a debrief, address concerns, and establish a concrete follow-up action. Thank you again for sharing your insights today, Libby. And until next time, let's go create some meaningful connections.
Thank you for listening to The Move in Healthcare Growth. Add your voice to the conversation. Email the show at themove@unlockhealthnow.com. Follow us on social media and stay up to date at unlockhealthnow.com. Also, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode.